Thank you all for coming today to the Akamat Matseva Melinda Ket Alea Shalom. This is a difficult time for the family, and I know that they very much appreciate everybody coming today. Melinda was daughter to Leo, sister to David, wife to Russell, and mother to Rabbi Nick and Justin. We're offering them all of our love and support. Melinda was also a beloved member of our shul with many close friends. And I speak for the whole community when I say that we miss her dearly. My name is Rabbi Sam Milenchik, the Rabbi of Belmont, where Melinda was a member. And I'm also joined by colleagues, both past and present. We're going to start the service on page 30. Before we do though, I would ask you make sure that your mobile phones are off to preserve the sanctity of the service. We're on page 30. We're going to read responsibly. Ashrei Haish, Asher Alach B'Atzav Yishayim Udech Adeinu Amad U'Moshav Lo Yisim Lo Yashar. והיה כאן פרגן מים, אשר פריו ייתן ביתו, ועלה לו עמו, וכל אשר יעשה יצליח. על כן, לא יקומו רשעים במשפט, וחבל ועדת צדיקים. Please turn the page to page 32. Eshet Chaim Yisrael, therefore giving me ground. Gemara to go, the Torah, for Oh, the David Mushab, but he's not the Sophia, you forget that, and let him stood on ישלם אדוני פותח ותימשכותך שנונים אדוני אלוקי ישראל אשר באת חסות תחת כנפיו.
You're on page 34 with Psalm 16 again, Genesis responsive. מלכותם לדוד שומרי אביקסי סיבה שמר אשר בארץ נאמר ואדיבי כוכב סיבה I menas kam di khosi asa to mi khid gairali Pavle khazat na yashi yansani ya felos isuni khi yoisai Lokein samak ni miyad yadodi ya besar ishkon gavetza Ignora fine so vas ma cos hispaneca Dios me la Continue page 36 once again on the verses. Yismol David Adonai Roi Lo נפשי שוברת ינחני ומגלי צדק לבן שמו. לפונה שוב פונגת סורוי, נשענת בשמן לא אישי, Oh, I see it, my God. Continuing on page 38, again with the verse. Adonai, ma'onach v'yisamahu b'dor b'ador b'terem horim yiladu v'dechol eretz sevel milam adolam Continue on page 39. As the multiple dead days are like grass, they flourish like a flower of the field. The wind buffets it and blows away and leaves behind no trace. But the loving kindness of the Lord is for eternity. His righteousness is with children in the way of life and when the dust covered the earth and was, there is very eternal God who gave it. Who had the heaven like you, and having you I understand nothing else on earth. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. How precious is your unfailing love, O Lord, more than breaking thunders and wing. For it is the fountain of life, your life speaks to life.
Continue with the paragraph, top of page 40, altogether in Hebrew.
Baruch Adonai Bayom, Baruch Adonai Halaylam, Baruch Adonai Mishkabeinu, Baruch Adonai Bekumeinu, Baruch Adonai Hashos Ha'ayim Alayti, Asher B'yadon Lechem, B'chayim B'rocha B'tzai, B'yadon B'yadon Adonai Elements, and Ahai Shabbat Yachad Shabbat B'yadon B'tzai,
Lord by day, blessed be the Lord by night. Blessed be the Lord when we lie down, blessed be the Lord when we rise up. For in your hand are the souls of the living and the dead, as it is written. In his hand is every living soul and the breath of all mankind. Into your hand I entrust my spirit. You have redeemed me, O Lord God of truth. Our God who is in heaven, assert the unity of your name. Establish your kingdom for all time and reign over us forever and ever. We now call on the family to get their spades in, starting with Russell.
Rabbonim, Leah, Justin, Nicholas and Shira, David, family, neighbors, and friends. First, may I thank you all for being with us today. It means so much to have you here. The past 6 months have flown by, and there are so many people here, too numerous to mention by name, who I'd like to thank for your kindness in helping to make life a little less unbearable each day. Having said that, the Grosswood Kets didn't become such a close unit without Melinda's two special friends, Julia and Francis, being there for her. Thank you for the most moving tribute you both paid to her at her Shloshim event, and together with Graham and Stephen for always being there for me. Justin and Nicholas, along with Shira, have ensured that I've wanted for nothing in spite of their own need to grieve, which has not been easy. I admire the way both Justin and Nicholas have ensured they fulfill their obligation to say Kaddish for Melinda each day, often at great inconvenience to themselves. Such is the high regard in which they hold their mother. If this has drawn us all closer together, who am I to complain? Each of you here today will have your special memories of Melinda, and many of you have been kind enough to share these with us. These recollections led us to conclude the wording on her stone, which we'll shortly visit, with a quotation from Pirkei Avot, which we've translated as, "Much loved by all, she always cared for others." There is no doubt in my mind that the reason she was loved so much by us all is because she genuinely cared for everyone. She always made time for people, to inquire after them and their loved ones, and had an encyclopedic memory for details, which I could always rely on. It'll take time for all of us to come to terms with Melinda no longer being with us. And each time there is a first without her there is an extra reminder. The first Shabbat, the first night of Hanukkah, my first visit to our flat in Netanya, Miri's Bas Mitzvah in January, other family members' birthdays, including her father Leo's special 95th birthday in February, and only recently the first Seder night and the first Yusuf. And for me, looking up into the ladies' gallery in Shul and not seeing her smiling face will always be difficult. The special effort she made to be there on Kol Nidre and the pride she took in seeing Justin dabbling that service for Belmont for the first time was immense and hugely memorable. None of us realized that would be her last time in Shul. Melinda's caring for others was especially demonstrated on Thursday afternoons, when we collected our grandchildren from school, gave them supper, helped them with homework, and played games. This was the undoubted highlight of her week, especially when the effects of her treatment were at their most intense. But she found the inner strength to ensure that Miri, Doniel, and Dassie always came first. I hope in time I can take on this mantle and to include Leah in this important responsibility. So in conclusion, Melinda, I will always miss you, your smile, your sense of humor, your care for everyone as well as your family, especially your grandchildren. And I thank you again for the 44 years, 4 months, and 4 days we were blessed to have been married. In the words of Dolly Parton, albeit made more famous by Whitney Houston, I will always love you.
Justin.
I feel like these last 6 months have been very different for me than for Dad and Justin. The very day after we got up from Shiva, I was already back in Bushy attending a new members brunch for 150 people, and the workload has barely eased up since. When one is mourning a relative, one should avoid large gatherings and joyous occasions. So after half a dozen community dinners, Kiddush every Shabbat, 3 pots, and a baby blessing last Shabbos for 25 families, I've often found it hard to feel the difference between regular life and that of an Aver, a mourner. Were it not for the fact that I make sure to get to shul each day to say Kaddish whilst growing my Theodore Herzl beard, my daily routine has not really carved out the necessary kind of silent space to truly reflect on what Mum's passing has meant to me. But though I flipped from meeting to meeting and from event to event, whilst also trying to balance and spend time with Shira and the kids, I've constantly felt Mum's presence cheering me on, and I know that she would be so proud. We felt this most acutely in Miri's Bas Mitzvah Kiddush in January, where Grandma would have otherwise been fed. She and Zadie managed to organize personalised Machzorim for Miri as a gift, but it would have been Mum who would have signed them for her, a task she was unable to complete. As such, Miri will have to resort to trusting her heart about what her grandma would have wanted to convey in her message. But since she knows the high esteem to which she was held and the awe and pride her grandma had in all her accomplishments, Miri can still feel Mum's love and warmth radiating through the pages. There have been three main reflections that I've drawn strength from whilst thinking about what to say today, which all stem from the same idea. This past Shabbat, we read a double portion from the Torah, the Parshiot of Acharemot and Kedoshim. Each parsha contains its own themes and content, but our rabbis almost playfully reveal a hidden connection between these two parshiot. By reading the two together, Acharemot, Kedoshim, a phrase emerges. After death comes holiness. Indeed, after a person leaves this world, their soul is free from the shackles of physicality which it has had to cope with during its lifetime. We are so much more than our physical bodies, and Judaism teaches us that the truest reward for our actions comes in the next world, not in this one. This is difficult for those of us who are left behind to mourn. But I've drawn comfort from the knowledge that Mum is now no longer suffering from her illness and is no longer confined to the limitations of her body. And through the mitzvahs that we all do, in which she has a part, we have all given her neshama a spiritual boost and allowed her to comfortably ascend to her divine resting place. My second reflection, the same phrase, different message. Acharemot Kedoshim. After a person passes, we realize the phenomenal imprint and impact our loved ones have left on this world. It is unfortunate that in many cases, the best stories come to light after the person has passed. And some of the things which could have been said in their lifetime instead are said afterwards. Whilst sitting in my parents' home during the week of Shiva, it brought to focus how fortunate and blessed Justin and I were to have been raised in the way that we were. The significance of Mum passing at the time when we read the story of Noah and his ark was not lost on me. Our home was very much our ark, a cocoon of safety, strong values, and excellent manners, and Mum was always leading by example in this regard. Our home was never meant as a training ground for me to become a rabbi. But without it, I could never have been prepared as I was. As a teenager, I often felt too shielded, but I look back now with so much gratitude that there isn't too much from my past that I should be embarrassed about or ashamed of. My final reflection, Acharemot Kedoshim to you. After a person passes, you shall be holy. I felt a sense of urgency since Mum passed to up my game. With every extra mitzvah that I do, I feel like I'm filling a void that Mum left to be filled. The truth is, my family has felt this too. When Mum was ill, my children would find time to daven for her and to say Tehillim. But even after her passing, Shira has encouraged them to continue this practice. And there have been many times where I've spotted Dusty innocently sitting with her book of Tehillim completely unprompted. Or many times when Doniel has chased me around the house to sit with him for a few minutes and learn some Mishnah. Mum has a spiritual share in all our accomplishments, as do all of our loved ones. And we all have an opportunity to find ways of increasing the mitzvot that we do. It doesn't have to be propelled by bereavement, but it so often is. And it doesn't have to be something big. Any good deed that we do will have immense spiritual impact. I would just like to end by thanking everyone for their love, their concern, and support over the last few months. Everyone in Bushi in particular has really been so considerate, and it has really been a tremendous help. There aren't even words to adequately capture how incredible Shira has been throughout this time, though I know that Dad certainly tried to. She really is just the best. And to Dad, the man who I've always known to play out every eventuality in his mind so that nothing catches him by surprise. This has very much been uncharted territory. You have carried yourself through these difficult months with so much bravery, patience, and dignity, and you make Justin and I incredibly proud. As we come together to consecrate Mum's memorial, I pray that her memory will always be for a blessing. May her dear soul be bound in the bonds of eternal life. May she rest in peace.
Amen.
Justin.
Goulash, apple cake, macaroons, cinnamon rolls, chicken soup, brown bread ice cream, raspberry sour cream cake, chocolate chip ice cream. These are a few of my favorite things that Mum made for us and guests, even though some would be considered a classic of days of old. I mention them because I'm going to mention the meatballs again. And I don't want you thinking that Mum was a one-trick pony by any means. She was an excellent cook and baker. None surpassed her for edibility. Meatballs gets another mention because this was the last meal she cooked for Dad and me. It was the kept tradition to take our Yom Kippur fast on meatballs and rice, or pasta for Nick. And Mum was keen to ensure she didn't break the tradition last year. Yom Kippur will also be even more significant as Kol Nidre was her last appearance in Belmont Street. She strained every sinew and fibre to ensure she could be there for my debut in the limo. Ask anyone who was there and they'll tell you that she looked fantastic. Mum wouldn't have been there if she'd have thought that anyone would say otherwise. However, it was her chemo on Yom Kippur that ultimately caused the revolting disease and physical reaction to chemo to overcome her on Shabbat Parashat Emor. When we look at this week's Parashat Emor, there's a strange construction to the events of the Parashat. It can be split into three sections. We start with laws affecting the Kohanim, progress to a list of holidays like Shabbat and Pesach, before concluding with details of the menorah and the shulchan, the table, showbread. The connection between the first and third elements is clear, albeit that this is the third time the Torah has mentioned them. But why are these details of Shabbat and Chagim sandwiched in between? The answer is Kedusha, holiness. Parshat Emor tells of special laws concerning the Kohanim, people who are kadosh because they were dedicated to God's space. Bnei Israel needed to be careful about basic Tumah and Tahara laws before entering the Mishkan. But they needed to visit the Mishkan much less frequently than the Kohanim, who needed to be even more mindful of ritual purity and impurity, and recognize the structure's stature as a special place set aside for Hashem. This increased awareness is exemplified by Kohen not being allowed to come in contact with a dead person who is not an immediate member of his family, since that would make him tameh, impure. As we know, even today, this is the case with Kohanim. Exposure to death and mourning calls us to enter a temporary state of ritual impurity while suffering a loss. Our exposure to death is meant to remind us of God as the source of all life. But a mourner cannot immediately achieve that kind of clarity. But in the times of Mishkan, we were allowed to be human, and were given a waiting period and Tahara rituals to help us re-enter Hashem's place. Our Kohen couldn't do this, they are part of that space. Their perception must always be aligned with Hashem as the giver of life. So how does this connect with Chagim? Well, referring to them as holidays gives us a big clue. Literally, holy days. The Torah calls them Mo'adei Hashem, the appointed times of Hashem. Asher tikuru otam b'Korei Kodesh, which you should call holy occasions. Why does Hashem tell us to refer to festivals as holy? Using our definition of Kedusha as making a place for others, we know that by respecting other people's property and building Mishkan, we are fulfilling this desire for Kedusha. However, it's not just in the physical realms that we can make a place for others, but also in time. When you make time for someone, you are giving them a place in your life. Mum excelled at this. She gave her time to her family, friends, colleagues, clients, and community. Always putting others first before her own thoughts, needs, and feelings. Sometimes to the detriment of her own physical and mental well-being. The message of making time for other people is illustrated in the song Cats in the Cradle by Howard Chaykin. Coincidentally,
I was using this song as a comprehension activity in my English lesson with Year 5 last week. The story of the song is about a dad who lives with his son, but can't ever seem to make time for him. He always has planes to catch and bills to pay. And he turns his son down when he asks him to teach him how to throw the ball around. This isn't a malicious relationship. The dad promises the son that there will be time for him in the future. We'll get together again. But his son grows up and becomes just like his father. He goes to college, he starts a family. And when the father is ready to spend time with his son, the son has become a father of his own, with no time for his dad. When I tell you how special Mum was because of the time she made for others, you're rightly be in awe of her. But praising her for making time for Dad, Nick, and me, people that she lived with, seems absurd. When you live with other people in your family home, you're occupying the same space. You eat meals together, sleep in the same home together. But making a place for someone isn't only about space, it's also about time. Making sure to reserve time for your loved ones, to make a place for them in your lives, is the act of making time holy. This is what the Moadim are about. Hashem tells us that the 6 days we should all do our own thing, go to school or work, socialize. But the 7th day is different. The 7th day is reserved. It's holy. Shabbat Hila Hashem, it's our time for us to be together. The mention of the menorah and the shulchan at the end of the parasha is not random either. The words tamid, meaning always, is associated with both items. Tamid is an expression of time. It means at all times. Both the lights of the menorah and the loaves of the shulchan are meant to be present before Hashem at every moment. The menorah and shulchan teach us about creating a place for God in time, and that's why they follow the section of the Moadim, the festivals. The timing of the unveiling of Mum's Matzeva is anything but coincidental. Reading the Parashiyot of Mont Kedoshim this past Shabbat, we saw mention of the Yom Kippur service and ritual routines that the Kohen Gadol had to perform. And then this week in Emor, we will encounter Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, and Shabbat. These were times that Mum ensured we celebrated with alacrity. Mum understood that Shabbat and Chagim were opportunities to capitalize on having time to spend together. And therefore safeguarding them as the most special times for family and friends. Having just spent our first Pesach without Mum, it would be remiss of me not to mention that time specifically. Our family Sederim, led by Dad, were only possible due to the relentless efforts of Mum to ensure we had the constituent parts of the Seder. Her charoset was delicious. It could have been a year-round treat. The meal was sublime. When we drink the 4 cups, like Yeshaya Horowitz, who lived in the 16th, 17th century, suggests we can remember each of the Mahorot kingdom. After we conclude Birkat Hamazon, we drink the 3rd cup. Rachel was the mother of Yosef, who ensured that the entire land of Israel would have all the nutritious food that they would require during the years of famine. It is fitting that we remember Rachel, the mother of the person who sustained the nation after we had completed our meal. Mum, the amount that you cooked was as if you were sustaining a nation instead of a family. But it was the love you put into everything you did for us, the determination that Nick and I should grow up straight and true, and the partnership that you built with Dad, so strong that Nick and I wanted for nothing. This is the morasha that we are so grateful to receive. Dad, you are equally loved and appreciated by Nick and me. Watching you over the past 6 months, your strength has been inspiring, and your determination has been awesome. May we all enjoy many more smackouts, like we did for Mary's Bas Mitzvah, for many years to come. I was asked not to even expect seeing what I'm going to do because I'm most comfortable. Miri, Danielle, Dusty, and Leah. We know you're not present, but I want everyone to know how special your parents are and how much I love you all. You provide energy, inspiration, and love, which itself has been cultivated by the example shown by Nick and Shiva. Love you. Finally, thank you to all our family and friends who have given us the time, space, and support to have been aware of this.
Sure.
All right, Rabbi, ladies and gentlemen, we heard some really very moving tributes about a wonderful and very special wife, mother, grandmother, very special and dedicated daughter and sister. And there's little that I can really add to all of those tributes, other than to look around the room today and to say that the number of people who are here is really a testament both to the high regard in which Melinda was held, and also to how much her loss is felt. And I know that Melinda today would probably be immensely embarrassed to know that so many people have come to pay tribute to her in this way. But I think it's a wonderful testament to the high regard in which she was held. On Shabbat afternoon, we read from the 3rd chapter of Pirkei Avot, and we said, one should know before whom one is going to be standing in the future to give judgment, assessment, and a calculation. And what is the difference between giving judgment or an assessment before God and also a calculation? And drawing on the comments of the Vilna Gaon, I would like to suggest that din is an account of what we've done personally in our lives, whereas cheshbon is an account of the wider impact that we've had. And I think that we can say that Melinda excelled in both of these regards. We've heard today about the wonderful things, the attention to detail that Melinda had, the attention to other people that Melinda had, both in her personal life and in her professional life as well. But she also had a cheshbon. She also made an impact in a wider sense as well, through Russell's efforts, through Nick's efforts, through Justin's efforts, and through the efforts of all her family and her friends. All of Russell's communal endeavours were an impact made by Melinda, facilitating them. All the children that Justin inspires and teaches at school, they gain from Justin being raised and taught by Melinda. And likewise, all the Avodat HaKodesh that Nick and Shira do is influenced, and the impetus came from Melinda. And that, I think, is the cheshbon that she had in her lifetime. Not just what she did, but also what she inspired others to be able to achieve and to do. And therefore, on behalf of everybody, we extend our condolences to Russell, to Justin, to Rabbi Nick, to Leo, and to David. We wish you all long life, combined with the prayer, Shelot Tosifu L'Dava Od, that you should know no further sorrows, and you should be able to find comfort and consolation in the wealth of warm memories that I know that you all have. We'll continue to conclude the service in here with Psalm 91, led by Rabbi Nick.
So turn verses. יושב בסהליון בצל שדי יתרונה. והצלך מפח יחוש בדבר אבו. לא תירא מפחד לילה מחץ יעוף יומה. תיפול מצדך אלף ורבם ממינך אליך לא ייגע. אתה במות נפשי עליון שמת מעונך. ענפה יצווה לשמורך בכל דרכיך. המשך ענפת תדרוך תרמוס כפיל ותניק. כמו אנוכי בצרה, אכלצהו ואכבדהו. ירנו תשועתי.
River. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please leave your presence in the floor. There is transport outside and we've got very limited seats. Anybody who would like to use the transport, if they can please go out to the door of the building. Everyone else, please follow me this way.
We now say the blessing that we say upon entering the cemetery, which I'll say on behalf of everyone. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yotzer eschem badin, zon v'chilkel eschem badin, v'hemes eschem badin, v'yodea mispar kulechem badin, v'osid lahachazer lachayes eschem badin, Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hamesim. Atah gibar le'olam Adonai mechayei mesim atarav le'ishia, v'chalkel chaim b'chesed mechayei mesim brachamim rabim, someich le'felim roifei felim v'atzir asurim, Mechayim u'nosoi l'shenei ofar, mi'chamoich abau g'burois v'mitoi melach, Melech Memes Machayim Asmiach Yeshua Ve'emon Atzal Lachayes Meisim.
Yes.
The inscription reads as follows: Hot Bunamar Rachel Bat Reb Leib Levi, Niftara Shabbat Kodesh Dalet Cheshvan Tafshin Pei Gimel, in memory of Melinda Rachel Kett, who passed away on Shabbat Kodesh, 29th of October 2022, the 4th of Cheshvan 5783, age 67. Deeply missed by her devoted husband, sons and daughter-in-law, grandchildren, father, brother, relatives and friends. Shammai Omer, Emor Ma'at Laseh Harbei, V'Hevei Rabelech Kol Ha'adam B'Seiver Pamim Yaakov. Much loved by all, she always cared for others. V'Hei Nishmata Tzura B'Tzror HaChayim.
Shofei Bameromi, Amsei Menucha Nekona, Ale Kanasei Asukina, V'Mahalo Kedoshim Udoim, Bezo Hakia Maziri Et Nishmat Barat Rachel Bat Reb Leib Levi She'alecha Le'olamah Ana Bal Harafani Asireha V'Seite Knafecha Le'olami Utzro Yitzror HaChayim Et Nishmata Adonai Yehuda Chalatma Shalom Al Mishkava V'no
Bili Vashabai V'Chalo Chafalti V'Aretz, Kalash Eril V'Avit Shul V'Avit Chalki Elohim Olam, Mayakar Chas V'Cha Elohim V'nei Adam V'Tzel K'nafecha Yechesayim, Ki Imcham L'Kor Chayim, V'Oracha Nere'o.
Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabam, v'yalma divrach yirasei, v'yam lidmach v'sei, v'chayechon, v'yamechon, v'chayei d'chometz Yisrael, v'agalav yizman karim, yimru amen. Hey, shmei rabam agorach, v'yam mayam, yisbarach, v'yishlabach, v'yispoach, v'yisromach, v'yisnasei, Yisadav, Yisalev, Yisalal, Shemei Dikudshah Riku, Leila Min Kol Birchasa V'Shirasa, Tushbachasa V'Nechemasa, Yamiram V'Yalama V'Beru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'Chayim Aleinu V'Yakol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Ose shalom b'broma, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, v'yakol Yisrael v'imru, amen.
The service is now complete.
I've got you.